Good evening. Let's call our meeting to order. I appreciate your patience. I'll ask the treasurer to call the roll.
Ms. Adair.
Present.
President Baker.
Yes, I am here.
Mr. Brown. Here. Vice President Cole. Ms. Gibbs.
Here.
Mr. Ragland. Here. Ms. Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. So we have a special guest tonight, Chase Letkovitz from Troop 74, who is working on communications and citizenship in the country merit badges, and he is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I would ask him to approach the podium, and everyone please be upstanding. He'll lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Scout Letkovitz. We appreciate it. Dr. Rausch is actually his advisor on those two merit badges, so thank you, Dr. Rausch, for helping to arrange that. We appreciate it. Next, I would like to acknowledge Mr. Matt Smido, who is joining us for the first time. He is, now that Rhonda Johnson has retired, he is filling in as Interim Education Director for the City of Columbus. Mr. Smido, welcome to the table.
Thank you, President Baker.
Yes, sir. And Director Johnson's last day was Friday. She acknowledged the receipt of the flowers that we sent her. Thank you to board members who helped me to pay for those flowers for Director Johnson for her longstanding service to the district. She says if you want to have a meeting with her now, they will be taking place on her back patio. So thank you very much. And Mr. Smido, I will call on you later to talk about city investment in pre-K.
Thank you, President Baker.
Under announcements. Thank you very much. All right. Next, I just wanted to, very briefly acknowledge some recent tragedies in our country, and I just would like everyone to join the board as we observe a moment of silence in honor of those lives lost and impacted by shootings in El Paso and Dayton. Let's just have a brief moment of silence. Thank you. So, board, if you'll indulge me very briefly, I wrote this statement and I read it every time we do this, and I've read it a lot, too often. I'd like to take time for a moment of silence in light of recent violence throughout our country. I'd like to call on all elected officials and community leaders everywhere to stand up to hatred and to engage with one another in pursuit of tolerance and actual solutions. President Trump was quoted earlier this week in response to these tragedies. He said, "There is no room for hate in America." I couldn't agree more. Mr. President, actions speak louder than words. Hatred is based on fear. Fear is based on ignorance, which is one of the reasons why education is so critically important. And please remember, love is still the strongest force in the world. Thank you. Let's move on then. Colleagues, we are preparing to adopt our agenda. Before we do that, I'd like to just briefly read through the remainder of the agenda just so we know the work before us this evening. We have a number of board recognitions, or at least one very special one. We will then take public comment. We do have one individual signed up to speak. The board will then consider its consent agenda, after which we will have announcements and points of pride. The board will then recess into executive session. So having said that, colleagues, is there a motion that we adopt the agenda as it's presented here?
So moved.
I move to amend.
Mr. Brown?
I move to amend the agenda to add an item which is left over from the July 12th meeting, the Friday morning meeting that we had. My motion is to amend it to add an item that will allow us to clarify precisely what each member of the board voted on. It's apparent to me and to many others, including many here, many members of the board here, that as that vote was taken, it was not clear to all, and we were not all on the same page about what we voted on. Some, including me, believed that we were voting on the motion that I stated, which was a motion allowing travel to the Harvard Business School as we did, and to do that provided that there be no further travel by board members out of state for the balance of the year. I know that, and I'll let him speak for himself, he can do that. But when Mr. Ragland seconded the motion, his intent was seconding my statement, my stated motion. It's also apparent that some, including you, believe that what we voted on at that meeting was the motion that was written into the agenda, written into the pre-printed materials. And as a result, the vote was unanimous. However, different members of this board intended different things. So my motion to amend now is to place on the agenda for tonight an opportunity to re-vote on that motion that was presented on July 12th, to clarify and make sure that we all know precisely what it is we're voting on. And every member gets to cast their own vote, and the board then has an outcome that is clear and specific.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
would you mind, because you're making a motion, just so the treasurer is clear,
And that's-
could you restate your motion?
Yeah.
And Dr. Roush, I'll ask you to approach the podium just in case we have questions.
Yeah. The motion is simply to add an item to the agenda for tonight, a separate item from the consent agenda, that would supersede and clarify the item on which this board voted on July 12th, so that each member can know precisely what they're voting on.
Dr. Roush, thank you. Mr. Treasurer, are you clear on that motion? And let me ask Dr. Roush, who is acting this evening as our parliamentarian, just to help guide us through this process. Well, I want to know if the motion is acceptable. If it's a motion to reconsider, it may be out of order. I just want to clarify the language. Dr. Roush.
President Baker. Thank you. A little loud. Thank you very much. If it is a motion to reconsider, and I don't believe that is what, it sounds as if what I heard, and I'm going to repeat back, it would be to supersede and clarify the item, which would be item 3.1, on which was voted on July 2nd. I don't know that it's a motion to reconsider that you're making. Is it a motion to reconsider? Are you offering essentially what, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. If it's a motion to reconsider, it would not be in order.
The date we're talking about is July 12th, a Friday
Correct.
morning. And because I am not an expert like you and some others on Robert's rules, and I don't know the technical definition of the word reconsider. As Robert Rule defines it, it's a term of art.
That is correct.
My request is to make sure that we have an opportunity to vote anew on a motion that will be understood by all, so that we're all on the same page with that.
Dr. Roush?
So I'm just want to make sure to clarify, the item.
In my mind,
Okay.
it means to clarify. To clarify so that we are voting either on the motion as I stated it on July 12th, or the motion as printed in the materials.
Dr. Roush, as parliamentarian, why don't you help Mr. Brown to wordsmith what we know what he's trying to do. He wants
Sure.
clarification.
I believe, having been at the
Well,
July
I know
12th
I can't do
meeting,
that.
I believe what it is that you're asking for clarification on is the part of your motion. I think the first part has to do with the Harvard trip, and that does not involve any part of your motion, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So then the second part of...
My understanding is that not only did I, but every member of the board voted knowing that we were approving the Harvard trip.
Every member present.
Every member present, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Every member present.
So then, based upon my recollection and conversation from the July 12th meeting, there was another portion to your initial motion, which was essentially to, that there would be no further board travel the rest of the year.
Correct.
And so it is
Out of state.
So the motion you're asking to be put before the board to be added to the agenda would essentially be a resolution to prohibit any further out-of-state travel for the board out of state for the rest of this year.
And that was, at least as I made that motion, it was very much linked to approval of the travel to the Harvard Business School.
So a resolution to that effect would be in order, and then per parliamentary procedure, you would need a second for that, and then obviously we need to determine whether or not it will be added to the agenda.
Right. Mr. Brown, does that adequately represent?
believe so.
Okay. So would you mind
we have a-
restating?
If we do that one more time.
Yes. So Mr. Brown is going to restate what he wants to have added to the agenda, and we'll add it. Why don't we dispense with it now? But so restate the motion, Dr. Roush or Mr. Brown.
Go ahead.
It's short.
What we're trying to get to is a short statement of what this agenda item would be, and then when we get to that agenda item, a motion would be in order that could go on forever if you'd like, but the item to be added is a very short topical item, correct?
It would be.
Okay, go ahead.
So it would be a resolution to prohibit out-of-state travel by the board for the remainder of the year,
Calendar year.
calendar year. And then I'll ask the treasurer to read it back to me to make sure I specified it and stated it correctly, if you would, please.
Okay, as I understand it, the motion that has been made by Board Member Brown is to amend tonight's agenda to include an item entitled Resolution to Prohibit Board of Education Travel Out of State for the Remainder of the Calendar Year.
And I think that it properly should also include reference to the July 12th meeting, and that this is a clarification of what occurred.
Would it be sufficient if I added resolution to prohibit Board of Education travel out of state for the remainder of the calendar year. To clarify, Resolution 3.1 at board meeting July 12th?
That's fine.
Okay.
So that meets our criteria for parliamentary procedure, does it not, Dr. Roush?
It still needs to be seconded.
Well, yes. Okay, so we're good. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All right. Now, shall we dispense with it now? Is it your intention that we dispense with it now?
Certainly
Okay,
fine.
very good. Seeing no other discussion,
This is just to put it on the agenda.
we're voting.
It's just to put it on the agenda.
Correct.
And we, I heard Board Member Brown specifically ask that it be separate from the consent agenda. So for record-keeping and numbering purposes, I would recommend or request that we insert that as item 9, where voting on consent agenda is, and dispense with it at that point. And every item 9 through the balance of the agenda would subsequently be renumbered. So this would become agenda item number 9, if that's okay, unless you wanted to defer it to later in the meeting. But
At least on my part, I have no preference what any of it
Okay.
is numbered.
Okay, very good. So we are now going to vote to add it to the agenda as number 9. All hearts and minds clear? Mr. Treasurer, please.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Agenda as number 9.
We're adding it to the agenda.
You're adding this item to the agenda for discussion as item number 9.
No.
Ms. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes?
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
That motion carried. This item, as I read it, has been added to the agenda as item number 9.
Thank you. So, does that also adopt the agenda?
No, sir, it
as
does
amended?
not. You
Okay.
now have adopt the agenda as amended by this past resolution.
Is there a motion?
No, it's been moved and seconded.
Okay.
It was subsequently amended. The motion now stands before the board as amended with item 9 added and the other ones renumbered.
Any questions, or are we prepared to vote on adopting the agenda? Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes?
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
And Ms. Adair? That motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Roush. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on. Item number 5 is listed on your agenda as board recognitions. If there's no objection, because he was able to join us this evening, I would like to move up to board recognitions, item 6.1. We have Mr. Daniel Clark with us, and he is going to receive his diploma this evening that he should have originally received in 1965. What I believe that signifies is that there's no objection. So we will move item 16.1 to board recognitions, item 5. So I'd like to ask, now let me just say a little bit. So Mr. Clark would have graduated from South High School in 1965. He served in the Marine Corps and in the Navy. And so we will be presenting him this evening with his diploma of graduation. Mr. Clark, would you like to come up to the podium, please? And colleagues, yes, thank you. Let's have a motion on item 16.1. Ms. Gibbs,
Accept item 16.1.
moved and seconded. All right. It's an honor for us to have this opportunity this evening to hear from you and to present you with your diploma. Would you like to say a few words?
Well, I just want to go along with what you said there at the beginning, was about the hatred in the country. If people could see what third world countries, like I've seen, are living under, they would learn to respect this country and take care of it. There's just no room for hatred.
Well, I think you said it all. Colleagues, any comments before we vote on this item?
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for your sacrifice. It is because of great men like you we are able to sit here today and enjoy the freedom of debate, of discourse, and to love our American country.
Thank you.
Absolutely right. Hearing nothing else, Mr. Treasurer, would you call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Absolutely, yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland? Yes. Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
And that motion carried.
Thank you. That motion carries. Mr. Clark, I'm going to ask you to come up here to the table. We're going to take a photograph. We're going to present you with your diploma.
I've been 14 years before I had to get out.
Why don't we want you to fall?
Thank you very much.
And I know Dr. Klein was instrumental in helping us to provide that long overdue diploma. And Dr. Klein, did you want to say anything at all about that journey? Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Baker. I just want to say that if you know anyone that is a World War II Korean or Vietnam vet that did not receive their diploma, that served and got an honorable discharge, please let us know, because we want to make sure that we honor those men and women. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Klein. Thank you very much. All right. Colleagues, let's move on then to public comment. We do have one speaker with us this evening. Professor Kogan knows the rules of speaking to the board, so I'll ask him to come up to the podium. And as usual, Professor Kogan, you will have 4 minutes. Your topic, inequities in teacher and substitute resources across buildings. Board action requested. Take immediate steps to address deep inequities in teacher experience, instructional spending, and substitute coverage during absences across Columbus school buildings. Professor, good evening. Welcome back.
All right, good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer Bohoric. I don't think Internal Auditor Smith is here, members of the board, and Superintendent Dixon. So a few months ago, when discussing the district's financial forecast, Treasurer Bohoric noted the inequities in Ohio's school funding. And I wanted to play a quick clip to remind you of that meeting.
I can get on, I have. I've gotten on a soapbox at some meetings when they're trying to patiently get me to jump on their school bus. I invited them to come with me to an elementary school and explain to my elementary children why they're not worth as much as the other elementary children.
So I'm here today to draw your attention to similar disparities within the district, caused not by state funding, but by your own policies. To summarize, students attending our lowest performing, most heavily minority schools do not have access to the same educational opportunities as students at other CCS campuses. Teachers educating our most disadvantaged students have, on average, fewer years of experience, get paid thousands of dollars less, are far more likely to leave at the end of each year, and are far less likely to receive a substitute teacher when they're out sick. So I've provided you with the full statistics in my written comments, but in the interest of time, I want to point your attention to just 2 examples. So compare Livingston Elementary, one of our lowest achieving schools, to Clinton Elementary, one of our city's most, most economically prosperous neighborhoods and students. Every year, Livingston loses nearly half of its teachers, primarily through intra-district transfers, a turnover rate that's more than double Clinton's. Not only does research show that such teacher turnover reduces student achievement, but it produces a teaching workforce in which the average Livingston teacher has 8 fewer years of experience than the average Clinton teacher, and is paid nearly $20,000 less to work in one of our toughest campuses. Last year, when its regular teachers were absent, Livingston was able to secure a substitute just 23% of the time, compared to 87% in Clinton. Without substitutes, students in affected classes are typically split up and sent to other classrooms, where they lose valuable instructional time while playing on Chromebooks, and potentially disrupt learning for everyone else. The disparities between Livingston and Clinton are just one vivid example of the systematic inequities in human capital resources across buildings in this district. But don't take my word for it. Every year, the district files a comprehensive continuous improvement plan with the Ohio Department of Education. This plan includes a component titled Equitable Access to Excellent Educators, which acknowledges that students attending our district's lowest performing schools are far more likely to be taught by inexperienced teachers. The district's plan also points to your own policies, specifically the teacher transfer process laid out in your collective bargaining agreement, as the central cause of these disparities. As a result of the 211 process, your own plan admits, campuses like Livingston are left to choose between hiring teachers that no other school wants or turning to inexperienced brand new teachers from outside the district. To date, schools like Livingston have tended to choose the latter, although as the turnover numbers show, this has not worked. The inexperienced teachers they hire transfer to other schools as soon as they can, starting the cycle all over again and creating massive teacher churn. This board has spoken repeatedly about your commitment to equity. Indeed, the district's mission statement commits you to ensuring that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in a global community. Note the emphasis on each student. However, as Treasurer Bajorek reminded you during a recent dispute over the accuracy of your meeting minutes, the board speaks through its actions, not through its words. And to date, the actions you've taken, through your policies, the substitute compensation and assignment system you've adopted, and the collective bargaining agreements you've signed or will soon sign, have not matched your words. To return to Treasurer Bajorek's quote at the beginning, I challenge you to go to a school like Livingston and explain to the kids there why they do not deserve the same experienced teachers and the same substitute coverage that students at schools like Clinton receive. If you believe that kids at Livingston do deserve the same educational opportunities, please take action to provide them with comparable human capital resources and turn the words in your mission statement into reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kogan. Are there any clarifying questions, colleagues? Thank you for providing your presentation in writing.
I know you'd like to take pictures. If you want to take a picture with my sign, happy to provide it for you.
Thank you.
What was that?
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much, Professor Kogan. Thank you for coming down. We appreciate it. All right. And that is our only speaker for this evening. Dr. Roush, yes? All right. Let's move on then to hear from our direct reports. And first, it is my pleasure to call on the 21st Superintendent of Columbus City School District, Dr. Dixon.
Good evening, board members. I would like to start by introducing the members of my new cabinet team. These would be the senior leaders who will work closely with me and be responsible for implementing the new vision for our district. The cabinet team will work collaboratively and ensure that our decision-making is strategic and, most importantly, student-centered. So our cabinet members, again, we have our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. John Stanford. He's someone who does not need any introduction. He's been a vital resource during my transition. He's invested in the success of the district. He leads with integrity and works collaboratively across departments. Second, we have our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Tracy Ocasio. And Dr. Ocasio, if you can stand, please. She recently joined our team from Reading, Pennsylvania. Dr. Ocasio is a curriculum expert who has held administrative roles in a number of cities, including Washington, D.C. Dr. Ocasio would be responsible for teaching and learning across the district. Next, we have Chief of Transformation and Leadership, Dr. Angela Chapman, who joined us in June. She joined us from DC Public Schools. Dr. Chapman will be responsible for leadership and development and supporting our building principals. Our Chief Communication Officer, Scott Wortman. Scott was on my leadership team in Cleveland Heights. He will lead our efforts to reshape the narrative of the district and our schools. We will be proactive in telling our story and highlighting the great work happening across the district. Chief of Human Resource Officer is Myra Wright. Myra has been with CCS for a number of years. She brings leadership and vision as we reshape the Human Resource Department. And Myra shares my vision for strategically recruiting and retaining top talent. Our Chief Engagement Officer, Alicia Gillison. We want to be intentional and strategic about engaging our families and our community partners. The work we do in public education cannot be done in isolation, so Alicia will be focused on maximizing our partnerships to achieve academic success for all students. Chief Accountability Officer, Dr. Michele Klein. She helps our district and school leaders to use data in decision-making, and she supervises the central enrollment. Our Chief Operation Officer, who's still out on medical leave, Maurice Odom. Our Special Assistant to the Superintendent is Monique Jaquette. Monique is a veteran principal in CCS, and she will be working on special projects and will oversee the upcoming strategic planning process. Executive Director of Budget and Business Services, Scott Gooding. Scott ensures that our departments and our school buildings have the appropriate resources to be successful. Director of Legislative Affairs, Dr. Eric Rausch. Eric plays an important role in board affairs and educational policy at the State House. And two other positions that are yet to be filled is the Chief Information Officer and Chief Equity Officer. So we're in the process now of hiring a new Chief of Information Officer, and the Chief of Equity Officer will be hired this fall as well. Also, we have our new area superintendents. So if you remember, we divided the district into 6 regions. So I will introduce the regions and who is leading those regions for you. So Region 1, we have Scott Nelson. Scott Nelson was a former superintendent of Sylvania Schools and most recently was the Director of Secondary Education for Groveport Madison Schools. Region 2 is Corey Grubbs. Most recently, he was the Coordinator of Strategic Initiatives and the Interim Director of Human Resources for the Canton City Schools. Region 3, Dr. Sandy Womack. He most recently was the Director of Principal Leadership and Development in Cleveland Heights. Region 4, Dr. Keith Harris, entering his 19th year in Columbus City Schools, and most recently was the District's Director of Testing and Program Services. Region 5, Diane Agnes, entering her 13th year in Columbus City Schools, including the past 10 years as a building administrator at Woodward Park Middle School. And finally, Luther Johnson. Most recently, he was Executive Director of Talent Labor Management for Cleveland Metropolitan Schools. We also have some other new members of our team I'd like to introduce. Our new Director of Employee Relations is John Dean. Our new Director of HR Administration is Terry Trieg. And our Director of School and Leadership is Catherine Moser. And we also have some principals and APs here tonight joining us. The new principal of Cedarwood Elementary is Christy Lee. Buckeye Middle School Assistant Principal, Janet Love. Mifflin Middle School Assistant Principal, Yolanda Stewart. Woodward Park Middle School Assistant Principal, Lisa Davis. Liberty Elementary School Assistant Principal, LaRon Marshall. Livingston Principal, Shara Cook, Sherry Cook, I'm sorry, my apologies. Starling Assistant Principal, Lori Gage, I'm sorry, thank you. And Old Orchard Assistant Principal, Rachel Palmer. Congratulations to all of them. We're excited about the new team. And if you recall, board, remember when I stated I was meeting with many of the principals and we were talking about equity and access. We wanted to make sure that our elementary schools that had at least 500 students had additional administrative support. We talked about that, we looked at that, and we wanted to make sure, and they stated, we need more additional support, and we provided that for them. And we're excited about all the things that the leadership team is going to do. We have a diverse group. They're coming from different areas across the U.S., and they are here to help us become a national model for for urban education. And we're excited about the opportunities and what this team is going to do. So the first day of school. The first day of school for most of our schools is a little more than 2 weeks away on Thursday, August 22nd. Our only year-round school, Woodcrest Elementary, welcomed its students back on July 24th. So we have community supporters along with Deputy Superintendent John Stanford and our new Chief of Transformation, Dr. Angela Chapman. We're there to clap students in on July 24th. Volunteers with the Junior League of Columbus handed out backpacks and school supplies to every student so they were prepared to learn on the first day. You can visit our website to see additional photos and videos from the first day. Our summer graduation, for many of our students, learning did not stop over the summer. We had nearly 3,900 students attending summer school across elementary and high school. This included CCS students as well as charter and non-public out-of-district and homeschool students. Summer classes wrapped up in late July, and we will celebrate those students who completed their graduation requirements this summer with our summer school graduation on Saturday, August 17th, beginning at 9:30 a.m. at East High School. Welcome back events for our staff. August is here, which means we're welcoming back most of our staff. I've had the opportunity to visit with many of the groups who have started back over the past week. I visited with the Secretary of Staff on Friday, August 2nd. Yesterday, I helped Charity Newsy with kick off the school year with a ceremonial ribbon cutting. That was awesome. And I think yesterday, and new staff yesterday, welcome 200 new staff members yesterday. We also have coming up our African American Wellness Walk. No, I'm sorry. Let me skip. I skipped a page. Sorry, Scott. Welcome 200 new teachers, and I addressed our administrative and building leaders at the start of the annual Leadership Academy. I was able to share my summer activities, introduce my cabinet team, area superintendents, and provide an overview of the priorities for the upcoming school year. Our teachers will return on Monday, August 19th, for 3 professional days before students report to school. Convocation. I'm excited to announce that we're hosting a staff convocation for the first time in many years. We're bringing nearly our entire district staff to the Greater Columbus Convention Center on Wednesday, August 21st. I will be addressing the staff and sharing my vision for the upcoming school year. And nationally recognized master teacher Adolph Doc Brown will also share a special presentation designed to energize our efforts here in Columbus. Central office staff have been planning the event for several weeks and expect to have several student performances during the event. We're excited to kick off the year with this type of event and get ready to a great start of the new year. And hopefully the board members are available to attend this event. The governor recognized Highland Elementary partnerships. Governor Mike DeWine visited the J. Ashburn Center near Highland Elementary to highlight this investment in student wellness and wraparound services in the state's recent budget. Highland Elementary has made significant strides in culture and climate and academic achievement, thanks in large to the community partnership it has cultivated under the principal, Dr. Elizabeth McNally. The event with Governor DeWine highlighted the school's partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and Nationwide's Children's. Deputy Superintendent Dr. John Stanford and Principal McNally spoke at the event on behalf of the district. Tom Joyner Golden Apple Award. So many of you guys know Tom Joyner Morning Show is a national syndicated program featuring Tom Joyner. He is retiring, so he, over the many years that he has been doing this syndicated show, he has helped raise over $60 million for historically black colleges around the United States. So what we did to honor his commitment to students in this region, we gave him a plaque for the Golden Apple. So we were able to present him with that on stage, and I had Lisa Gillison, Dr. Chapman, and Myra Wright with me as we were on stage. And I know there were some board members in the house that was watching us. So it was a great event attended by the community, and we were so glad to be able to honor him by the school district. African American Wellness Walk. So I would like to welcome the founder of the National African American Wellness Initiative, John Gregory, to the meeting tonight. This coming weekend, Columbus City Schools is joining thousands of Central Ohioans for the annual African American Male Wellness Walk. We will have students, staff, and families participating in the free health screening and joining our passion teams of walkers and runners for the 5K event. We will also have booth with information about our upcoming school year, student mentoring, employment opportunities, and free books for young readers. This year, I challenged the organizers of the Wellness Walk and our team, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Stanford and Scott Varner, with our new office of engagement, to take this successful partnership one step further. Like all of our partnership, this one also needed to be aligned with our priorities around literacy, numeracy, and graduation. And so, in the working with African American Male Wellness Initiative leaders, including its founder, John Gregory, we are nearly completed with our MOU, which will provide a series of programs and support opportunities around academic success, proper health and wellness, and financial stability. This partnership would include special finance wellness workshops, HIV and AIDS awareness workshops, cooking with dad events, and the popular barbershop talks with focus on mental wellness. The organization is also committed to help recruiting mentors and provide career exploration opportunities to our high school students. So I now turn it over to Mr. Gregory to tell you more about this partnership. Welcome, team.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. We are so excited about our partnership for 2019. Most people who are on the board know who I am, and so they know I do what I say I do, and I do it very well. And so the African American Male Wellness is in its 16th year, and it is one of the largest events that happens in Columbus for African Americans. And our focus is not just the one-day event that most of you all will come out and participate in, 5K walk and run, but it's a year-long program where we are focusing on different aspects of things that we want to focus as it relates to black men. If you look around our city and you look for the things that African American men can participate in, it's very small. And so what we attempt to do is to really focus on enhancing African American men's abilities to become a part of society as we're created to do and be. We want black men to be more healthy, because healthy men make healthy families. And so we have a Cooking with Dads program where we bring African American fathers and their children, and they learn how to cook healthy meals for less than $25. This is an ongoing program during the course of the year. We do a program called Barbershop Talk, Real Men, where we focus on mental health. You know, men don't like to talk, but when we go to the barbershop, we talk and tell everything. And so what we have done is simulated that process, and we have a big meeting and this year the meeting was held at Afrocentric, where we had over 350 men attend, where we had therapists and barbers in a room where we talked to men about mental health issues. And we look to do that again. We will start in the fall a 6-month program where we will be traveling from barbershops to barbershops and schools to have that discussion. And then we do an HIV program. African American men, and particularly in the city of Columbus, are leading in the new cases of HIV, and what we want them to know and have conversations about, that you don't have to die from HIV. Our next biggest thing coming up in October is we will have a financial wellness workshop, and we do that in partnership with Columbus Public again, where we are really trying to teach African American men. And we have one of the sessions is that what's it called, Chad?
We have a couple sessions. We have one that's Ready to Die. We have one at School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, so the Ready to Die is, most of us know that a lot of people die and they don't have any insurance. So we're teaching people, like, don't die without any insurance. You leave your kids something, or leave them ability just to be able to bury you. Saturday, at August 10th, starting at 7 o'clock, we're looking to do 1,000 free screenings. Black men come, they can get a free physical. There'll be 40, 50 doctors on hand to evaluate those physicals. We are creating a partnership with The Ohio State University where we'll be doing a research project that will be publicized in a medical journal. Most of you probably saw the advertisement, and most of the guys probably have it on. We have a tennis shoe that was designed and created by New Balance and is being sold through DSW. So we're looking forward to you all coming out and participating and walking with us. You're passionate. I understand that you guys got T-shirts, and so you're trying to outdo our T-shirts and look at our T-shirts.
They can't
And
correct
so this year y'all came, but I want you to know that there are Jobs and Family Services, a couple other people got T-shirts and passion teams, but we're looking to have a good time. Every hospital association is associated, every managed care system, every fraternity, every other, we have 7 banks involved. So this is a community affair. It's for Black and white, any race can come out and participate. What we're trying to do, though, is show that as African American men, we're taking the leadership and the responsibility for our own health and our own community. And so it's a good time. We start at 7 and we are done by 12:30. This year we will have a basketball skills challenge out there. So come and participate, and we appreciate you. We appreciate your support, and we hope that we can build a bigger and better relationship. Because here's my thing is, the real thing is we got to educate our kids. And that's all that really matters. And a lot of times we get caught up and hung up on titles and positions and Republican, Democrat, and who's this, who's that. At the end of the day, urban kids are intelligent, bright, and smart, and they need to be educated, and they need to be educated by us. And that's what we are focusing on. Any questions? Is that Shauna Gibbs?
Superintendent, would you mind if some board members comment on the presentation?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Gibbs,
I yield
ladies first.
I yield to the 2 African-American men on the board first.
Oh, all right.
Do you have something to say, James?
Mr. Ragland.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gregory, kudos to you and your team for not just the work that you are doing here for the African American Male Walk, but the work that you're doing around the country. This walk has spread from Columbus to other cities around this nation, and your work has just been invaluable to the health and wellness of African American males for a number of years. I also want to commend you for being a part of our educational ecosystem through your work with the Academy for Urban Scholars, as well as the work you're doing in our community with NCUS. You and your team members are all over this city, and at every stop along the way, you're doing something positive. You are a fine representation of what an African American male is in 2019, and I'm looking forward to joining you again this Saturday for our 16th annual walk. Kudos to you, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Big Brother John Gregory, it is just an absolute pleasure to see all of you standing here as proud men who are part of this community, making it better each and every year. I watch this the first year was started. I was in that little small meeting in that mansion right there on East Broad and Parsons when you conceived this piece and talked to us about it. I remember wheeling my children in a two-kid stroller. The first walk, I was running with my youngsters, and we've been running ever since. It is an absolute blessing to see how far this piece has come and come on behalf, unapologetically, of so many African-American men in this community that just take one time out of the year when they have it to stand up for themselves and say that we are here and we do care about our health, we do care about our families, we do care about our community. I just want to give you constant thank you and flowers right now for all that you've done and all the men that are standing beside you. I'd have to point out one man particularly outside of yourself who is standing among you, who is not only a brother, but also a friend and passionate advocate of public education, and that of our former vice president some time ago, Mr. W. Carlton Weddington. You've done so much just for so many of us in so many ways and guided us. So I just thank you, brother, for all that you do. You have my undaunting support. I look forward to working with you in the future, continuing with these programs. God bless you. God bless your work, sir. Yes, sir.
I thought you was going to talk about the alpha, but that's okay.
The bros will be there. We got one standing right there, right with you. So thank you again. God bless you.
Will you defer to other men? Oh, Ms. Gibbs. Yes, I beg your pardon, please.
Right, and Brother Gregory, you know the sound of my voice because it's normally on the other end of a phone saying thank you, congratulations, or what do you need me to do? And by far, the proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And you have wrapped your arms around and taken every African-American man in this city, in Atlanta, in Charlotte, in Washington, in Indy, and said, we are going to get to aging well together. We're going to make our 70s, our 80s, and our 90s together. So often, and in our business, we concentrate on kindergartners. We concentrate on 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, but there is a long life to be lived if you take care of your body. Our goal is not to have students make it to 12th grade. Our goal is to have you make it to 60, 70, retirement, living well after retirement, grandbabies and great-grandbabies, and seeing generations. And you can't do that if you're not here. And Mr. Gregory, you have taken this on your back. You have put in the lives of our fathers, our men, our husbands, our future husbands, our sons and our nephew. I'm going to speak it as though, call it forth. But you've taken all of them with you so that we can grow old together as a family. And there is grace in growing old, and that should be the ultimate goal. And in our community, when we have kids that don't make it to 15, right? But to be healthy, to go see the doctor, to do it all. And then for you to work on the other side, you're taking them from cradle to the grave and all in health and strong. And I love everything about you. I love the fidelity of your work. I love that it is focused on African-American males solely. We have maybe not enough, but we have programs for women. We have Coleman. We have tons of resources for women, but this is a room of your own. And I am glad, Dr. Dixon, you have seen the value and the benefit of this partnership. I'm glad to see my total school board inspiration, W. Carlton Weddington, on this team. I am glad to see all of the fine brothers, in case you're on the radio, fine brothers here assembled, and all of those that work with you the day of, the morning of, the thousands. Delta Sigma Theta has had a tent at the walk for years. We will be there this year. And so will many of the other women rooting you on, being there, the doctors, the supporters, there to help continue this work and wherever else you want to go. I see a walk in every state in the union, and I hope your work and your journey takes you there.
Well, thank you. And I do want to let everybody know the reason why we call this the African American Male Wellness Initiative is because when I started out, we called it the African American Male Wellness Initiative. And then I was going to change the name to the African American Family Walk. And Shauna Gibbs called me up and she said, "You better not change that name." She said, "We need that name because we need you all to take the lead." And so for that purpose, for the last 15 years, we've kept the name African American Male Wellness Initiative. So I thank you, Shauna, for your encouragement.
Thank you, Brother Greg.
Thank you, Board Member Brown.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory, from a different perspective, I want to let you know that I admire and respect greatly the work that you're doing, the leadership that you're providing with this walk. While I don't have the same perspective as my brothers on this board, I do share the importance of health. I know personally, and my family knows the importance of taking care of your health. I've had far too many experiences, and I know that much of that can be addressed by the leadership that you provided in showing us all what good health can do for all of us. I also, without even knowing specifically what my wife had to say to you this morning, I know you appeared before the county commissioners, and I second every word that Marilyn had to say as she spoke to you this morning, and frankly, the same for Kevin Boyce and John O'Grady. But I admire and respect greatly what you're doing, the effort that you're providing and teaching all of us about good health and the importance of taking care of yourself.
And we are so glad that our brothers of other races are joining us. As a matter of fact, our white participation has increased so much that I've been telling everybody, next year we might call it the African American Male Wellness Bring a White Friend Walk. So thank you, sir.
Well, if I can be treated as a friend, wonderful.
Board Member Reyes.
So, John, this is Ramona. I agree with everything that's said. The only thing I want to do is I want to thank you, as you've heard and many people have heard in the community. I am a happily married woman today because my husband went to your walk and was tested and was immediately put on medication for his high blood pressure. So I would not be a married woman today, as Ms. Shauna Gibbs said. Thank you for the handsome men there. I can't be looking at that, but you know, and that's the impact that has. I have a living, breathing person in my family that is now contributing not only to the community but into my life and pouring the gifts that he has, not only as an African American male, but also as a pastor in this community and as an advocate and a leader in the African American community. So that is definitely something that I'm thankful for. We do not have a male, our daughter's a female, but she is also the person that comes out. I've been going since I've heard about the African American Walk. I represent my Alpha Psi Lambda Hispanic co-ed fraternity founded at Ohio State University in 1985. I represent them, wear my colors, but I also wear the colors of Columbus City Schools. And maybe the one thing that has not, I'd say I want to thank you for including our kids because and making them a part of the organization. A lot of people like to take pictures with our kids. They like to show up because they want to do something with our kids that is a picture opportunity. You actually engage our kids, you take care of our kids, you educate our kids, you bring our kids into the fold. And then you also not only do that, but you also highlight our kids because our kids are able to perform and show their talents, whether it's a multitude of people present. So I make sure that even though the walk is the same day as the Latino Festival, as your brown brothers and sisters are celebrated on the other side of town, we make sure that we go there first before we attend our festival. So I just want to reiterate, thank you very much for all the work that you do in our community, and thank you for being the man who you are.
Thank you very much.
Board Member Adair.
So I feel like I have to say something. But I want to because you guys are amazing and the work you do in our community is absolutely amazing and you have impact, just as Board Member Reyes just shared her own personal story. I mean, you are impacting men and families across this city. One thing I want to say is, thank you for also taking a holistic approach to this. Not just physical health, but the things that you spoke about also were financial, also were mental health, pieces that are important to ensuring that we have strong families. So thank you for continuing to grow this initiative and making it not just about a one-day walk, but really about changing our entire community. I remember participating when it was a 5-mile. And I was a little confused when I thought I was done. But I'm excited to participate again this Saturday, and I will be out there representing the CCS with pride and being out there with you guys and our kids. So thank you so much.
If you did the 5 miles, you were there from the beginning. And that was because I didn't know nothing about a 5K. I thought white people were walking 5 miles.
Thank you. So I'll say the first time I did it, it was 5 miles, and I did it in dress shoes. So I wouldn't suggest that. Don't do that. But I look forward to receiving the T-shirt every year because I wear this T-shirt when I work out. And Carlton Weddington texted me a month or two ago and asked me how I was doing. And I just got back from a workout, and I was wearing my T-shirt, and I sent him a picture. So I try to wear this shirt out between receiving these shirts. So just the T-shirt alone has helped me to improve my health. So it's an honor and a privilege to have you all, and everybody standing at the podium is a leader, obviously. It's an honor and a privilege to have you all as partners, and we appreciate it, and we hope it continues long into the future. And
Dr. Dixon, we told you were making a good decision.
yes, and before they leave, it would be great if we could have a picture. Should we do that now?
President Baker.
Do you mind? Yes.
If you don't mind, if I might say.
No, please, Mr. Weddington, yes.
I'd be remiss if I did not come to the podium and say a few words. This is where I began my public life here at the Board of Education. And so I want to say hello to my former colleagues, and I see new faces around the table and around the room. Dr. Dixon, when you were one of the principals at Brookhaven High School. But I want to bring this full circle because as you gave all the accolades to us, we are here to provide those same expertise and energy and excitement to you all as our Columbus City School family. Because the things that we are able to do together will only make us more stronger and more successful. And so these men behind me, as well as the women who are involved, the entire community that is involved, we want to help improve Columbus City schools. And that's, as Brother Cole said, my passion at the time when I was sitting at those very seats that you were in was to make sure that every student in this district got the best education they could possibly get. And so we want to continue to do that through the African American Male Wellness Initiative and the partnership with Columbus City Schools. And so as Marlon Platt, myself, Dr. Stanford, and Scott Varner have been talking over the past couple months, we will finalize that MOU partnership, and we feel that we will give you a great product, and you will be proud of your own students, your own work, and the work that we provide for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, let's take a picture.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Warriors.
You'll have more time. Yes, sir. Coming to visit.
Madam Superintendent, you may continue.
Thank you, yes. So we have another special guest with us this evening as I close out my report. And we have the Dean of Ohio State University College of Education and Human Ecology, Donald Pope Davis. So I had the pleasure of addressing Dean Pope Davis faculty this summer to talk about how we can strengthen the partnership between Columbus City Schools and Ohio State University. Teacher recruitment is a priority of our district. Ohio State and the College of Education is a natural partner as we look to create a pipeline of talented teachers and building leaders, and some other great partnerships. So Dean Pope Davis put me on the spot with a surprise offer of the program's superintendent and resident position. And when he did it, I looked at Scott and Dr. Stanford, and he said, you have to say yes. At the time, I did not know what I was saying yes to. But I wanted to be obedient, and where we can offer our expertise, I think that we should always say yes, because we never know where we may be needed. But it wasn't until I got home and actually read the letter that I realized what it entailed, and I am so appreciative that the university asked me and the district to partner. And what better partner than having the largest school district in the state and the largest university in the state come together as we become a national model in urban education. So I would like to bring Dean Pope Davis up for just a second so you guys can see who he is, and if he can say just a brief thing about the wonderful things that he's doing in his department. He's new to Ohio State University's way. Not anymore, right? Welcome, Dean.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity to address you. As you know, I am the current dean, is the term I like to use, of the College of Education at The Ohio State University, College of Education and Human Ecology. One of many of the initiatives that I have introduced, you got a brief summary from Dr. Dixon a few moments ago, but one of the initiatives is that I have noticed the absence of our presence in connection with the Columbus community, and particularly as it relates to the school district. And one of the initiatives that I set out to do is to think of ways in which we can not only theoretically but in practice engage more fully in the activities and be collaborators as we go forward. As an institution, we produce a great deal of research around early childhood education and communities among diverse populations. And in many ways, as many of you know, we are known nationally in these areas. The challenge for us is that while we have this national reputation, we have a slightly nuanced reputation, to use a more unique word, in terms of our community here in Columbus. And so my initiatives had to center around how do we become more actively engaged in the Columbus community, and more importantly in terms of the state, given that we have a land-grant mission that requires us to be more systematically engaged. While our faculty have continued to engage from a research perspective, we have not been good stewards in terms of broadening that in various school districts. And so one of the things that I did as the dean is to establish a superintendent and residence program. I will tell you that our initiative around this has involved 3 components. We have what I would call an urban and rural initiative in early childhood education. So what we have done is we have invited 3 superintendents to be in residence in our college. Each of the superintendents will be given faculty status for the length of that process and that time. And the initial engagement is 3 years, subject to renewal on a year-to-year basis, assuming that they're doing the job that we have asked them to do and they have time to do it, as the case may be. But we're inviting them in because what has been absent in the narrative or in the dialogue is our ability to hear the perspective from people in the community. Many institutions create this ivory tower that puts them at a distance rather than a collaborative engagement. And so we're inviting people like Dr. Dixon to come into our space and to be an expert and share with us her perspective from the Columbus community so that we can begin to get this right. So that when we talk about research, when we talk about engagement with the community, we can be on the same page rather than coming at it from different perspectives. And so this is intended to have Dr. Dixon and 2 other superintendents present in our community. There is an expectation of physically being present, not being present from a distance. And so we believe that the basis of collaboration is relationship building. And if you are not physically present in the space, you will not see a change in the status quo. So all of the superintendents that we have invited into our space, we've invited them to be present in our space and be present not only as a conduit, but to actively participate in the life of the university as we engage going forward. And so we look forward to having Dr. Dixon's voice, both literally and figuratively as time permits, in our space and bringing a perspective to us so we are informed more totally in that process. One of the first tasks that she will be invited to, she doesn't know this yet, so I'm going to say it here first, is we are inviting all of the superintendents to attend the opening year of our convocation to our faculty and staff of the college. And we hope that your schedule can accommodate that. To give you a heads up, it's on August 19th. So don't say I didn't tell you. But anyway, this is a great opportunity for us because it is new. We haven't done it before. We're looking for expertise that she can bring to represent this board and the school district. And this becomes the one of many initiatives that we will do. In the broader scope, you will begin to see our college much more present and visible in the community. We're beginning to establish new relationships in other ways. We have also been talking about, as Dr. Dixon remembers, that we want to assist with the research area of the Columbus community. We have expertise in terms of research, looking at outcomes and so forth. We're looking at other ways of introducing collaboratively other pedagogical models that we believe are informed by evidence-based research so that we can bring those to the conversation. We want to turn the page, if you will. I don't spend a lot of time these days with people who are prepared to tell me about what the relationships look like 10 years ago or 5 years ago. I'm not accountable for that What I'm accountable for is what happens going forward. So if you want to be a collaborator with our college, I'm your person that you should talk with and engage in this enterprise. The other person you should talk with, and she's here with me this evening, is my Chief of Staff and Director of Strategic Operations, Dr. Paulette Curtis. She's another person that I often encourage her to represent our college out in the community, and I ask you to feel free to call upon her if there is some way in which we can engage and help you. The conversation, however, must begin about what are the collaborative initiatives that you think we can help you with. I'm not a fond friend of starting the conversation with, we need money. It's got to be driven by a strategic plan, a strategic idea, what outcomes are you looking for, and how we can help the community, given the diversity, not only ethnicity, but in terms of socioeconomic and first-generation students that live in our community. And we have to be present in those communities more than just in a scholarly way. We are at a tipping point in our college where we're trying to reinvent ourselves and think about ourselves in a new and different way. One of the ways that I think we can do that is to change the conversation. And I believe fundamentally that the way you change the conversation is you begin to change the people you're talking to. If I continue to talk to the same people, the status quo will be the way it is. That is why I'm excited about the changes that Dr. Dixon has made in the community here. And likewise, I think I speak for most of the people who are part of my leadership team that they are excited about some of the changes and the involvement that our college will do as it relates to the community. So I invite you to invite us back to this forum so that we can, from time to time, give you some updates on what we are doing in the community. But let me be clear about this. Given our human predicament, we will make mistakes. It is inevitable. And so, as my mother says to me often, make sure we give each other a moment of grace. Because of our predicament, we will make mistakes in language, in relationships, and so forth. And I ask that we take this step together because it is important that we do that. And that as I call upon you for your help and Dr. Dixon's guidance in our enterprise, that you feel free to do the same thing with us. OH. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Questions from colleagues or comments? Mr. Brown, I believe I saw your hand first.
Yes. First, I want to congratulate Dr. Dixon on her selection as the superintendent in residence at The Ohio State University. But I also want to comment, I too, when I joined this board 4 years ago, the presence of Ohio State University, the College of Education, and in total, was noticeably absent. I don't want to go back and talk about those things, but I love what I'm hearing today. And I want to thank you for recognizing that this partnership, this relationship is important, and commend you for taking some initial steps to expanding on the relationship. I see so many opportunities, as I'm sure you do, and I'm thrilled. That's what we need to be doing as Columbus City Schools is reaching out, developing and furthering partnerships with lots of resources in the community. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of folks that come before the presence of The Ohio State University. So thank you.
Board member, I'm sorry. Yes, Dean.
Please.
Carry on.
Thank you for your comments. I look forward to continuing this relationship, and I want to encourage you to invite us back for occasional updates.
Board member Reyes?
I'm an Ohio State alumni. love it. So it's always present. It's not, because remember, education follows the people. So my little piece of paper gives me the opportunity to add value as a Ohio State grad. But I too want to thank you. Very, very super excited of the partnership. Looking forward to having more CCS graduates from the College of Education to end up coming and teaching back in our district. So I want to make sure I say that, because that's something that has been on my tablet. I shared that with Dr. Dixon when we first met after her coming here. But I also want to say we just came back from a wonderful educational opportunity at Harvard University. And we had a lot of case studies from other districts too, about how other districts have had challenges, how they've reached out to a lot of different partners. And a lot of partners that they talked about were educational partners within their areas, whether it was Baltimore, whether it was Philadelphia. And we were able to sit as a consortium of the whole 7 of us, including Dr. Dixon, with other board members throughout the United States, to talk about how we do better. How are we as individuals, as board members, as educators and superintendents do better in the educational space. So what I'd like to offer is to, however you see fit, however you see in this model, how we can fit in there, how we can also benefit from your initiative, your strategic approach. I would like to be included in that, because I think it's important that we also grow as you grow, as Dr. Dixon grows, as the district itself grows. We have to do it together. And some of us have been here for a while. Some of us will be here just for a little while. But I think it's still imperative that we're all, how they say, rowing in the same direction, however possible. And we will also ask for grace, because we often fall off the horse. So, but the good news is that we get back on and we do it for the betterment of our students, which is the betterment of our community. So thank you.
Yes, Mr. Vice President, that's right.
Thank you so very much for being here with us this evening. It's just a quick echo of what they said. But this is the one thing that I always love about engagement, is the first step is finding commonality. We are in the public works of developing human beings. I too am an alum of The Ohio State University with a degree in international studies, and did a dual minor in French and in political science. We are in the public works of developing outstanding people. So I look forward to the opportunity as well, and ask however I can be of assistance in that effort, that you feel free to call upon us. I certainly will follow up with you. And just, this is just a phenomenal experience. I've heard many great things about you, so it's an honor to meet you. Thank you.
Board Member Gibbs?
So thank you for coming, and welcome to Columbus City Schools. I hope that you find our doors are always open to you. I hope you find that there's always an opportunity to have conversation and discourse, all leading towards the forward movement. Everything you have said has done nothing but inspire me. So I'm over here like, you saw that air clap and hallelujah. Because when you start with reinvention, voice, engagement, relationship building, and to change the conversation, change who you talking to, you are speaking the language of innovation, and you're speaking the language of moving the status quo. And that, as a learning, from one learning organization to the next, I think that is what is required to make sure our students keep moving. Together, we impact over 110,000 students between the two people right here, right? And what we do, move an entire ecosystem. If Ohio State moves in one direction, the entire city of Columbus and its regional team is impacted. Columbus City, 50,000 kids and plus all of our families. We move an entire ecosystem. So when those systems are talking about alignment and service and being better, we are talking about improving not just our institutions, but the entire quality of life of the 15th largest city in America, and that is huge. And so I find your thoughts refreshing. I hear what you're saying, but I've heard what your staff has said. And anybody that comes on board and has like 100% fan club, like you are definitely making moves and making waves, and they are very excited about your work. And I see why. So I am glad to have you on board. I am glad to share a piece of our superintendent with you. Peace. Look here, Dr. Pope Davis. But for all that we can give and all that we can share, that will improve the next generation of educators. Because you are in the people business and the people that we need.
Yeah.
The people that want to become teachers, guidance counselors, educators, the people that want to be with my children are in your space. And whatever we can do to make sure they are the best prepared, the best socially prepared, emotionally prepared, and can give our students the best pathway to educational success, I'm all for it. And so I am excited to see what this collaboration is going to bring.
Thank you. The fact that you're hearing good things about me, that simply means they're cashing the checks I'm giving them. Say those things. If I may comment on two of the points, I think my faculty, staff, and students, I'd be remiss if reminding you that we are a college of education and human ecology. And so I've been I was corrected on that very early when I got here, and now, given that I'm very much part of the community, I like to remind people of that. And given your support, given that Dr. Dixon has not signed the contract yet, I'm glad you are very supportive of this endeavor, and we look forward to doing great things together. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Superintendent?
Yep, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for the superintendent? Board members? Yes, Board Member Adair.
I just wanted to say to the new team, I am very excited you are here. Our number one asset in getting to our question zero, which is to make sure our students are ready and are succeeding academically, is our staff. Bar none. We are a people organization. And I'm really excited about the team you have assembled to lead this district. I want you to go and inspire everyone else below you and ensure that from bottom up, we are all moving strategically to the vision that our new superintendent is setting out for us. I am very personally excited for the work we have, and I just welcome you all to the CCS family. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the superintendent, colleagues?
Jen said it all.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Thank you very much. Excited about the progress. Let's move on then. Mr. O'Connor, you are sitting in this evening for the internal auditor. Have you a report to share?
No report this evening, just one note. We did have an audit and accountability committee meeting June 27th, and Ms. Smith will report on that at the next board meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. O'Connor. Let's move on then to our treasurer. Treasurer Bajorek, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, President Baker. No report this evening. Just a reminder, the 14th, which is a week from this Wednesday, we'll have our Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. Next, we have board matters. The only item there is we have a first reading of policy updates. You all received these via email. PRC Chair Brown, have you any comments to share related to the first reading?
I do.
Carry on.
And we have a number of policies to present to the board. I know that you've all had an opportunity to review all of those, and I would welcome questions about any changes, modifications, or new policies that we're recommending for approval. At any time, these will not be ready for approval for adoption until our next meeting. In the meantime, here for first reading are several things, and I'm going to just touch base on them. If you want to stop me, please do. First group is bylaw amendments from Neola. There's a 0131 legislative, which says essentially board members too are covered by the policies, something that somebody decided doesn't go without saying. Next policy, 141.2 on conflicts of interest, because there have been issues out throughout the state on matters, it seemed appropriate to add some additional provisions. There's nothing new here that is going to be surprising to anyone, but it just helps fill out the picture of the creative ways in which some board members have gone off the rails. 164, notice of meetings, simply brings us into the 20th century with the addition of website. The 165.2, special meetings, simply adds a category of emergency meetings in case that ever becomes necessary, and gives us a bit of information about how to do that. 166 on executive session simply clarifies what the law already says, and that is our meetings with the state auditor are also exempt from the Sunshine Law. 0168 pertaining to minutes, again, brings us into the modern age by talking about additional types of recordings that can be made. 169.1, dealing with public participation at meetings. It's been revised slightly just to reflect some updates on the law. For example, what is this one? Here we go. The law isn't terribly concerned about protecting us from personally directed comments. Those are okay. Not that we invite that, and we certainly expect respect and decorum, but if a member of the public wants to direct something at one of us, we're elected officials and we're in that position. What's also helpful with this policy is that when a person, whether a public speaker or otherwise, is disruptive to our process, this policy change reflects that we may have that person removed, and that's helpful. The next section of amendments are policy amendments, and there are the first four of these, 5610, 5610.02, 5610.03, and 5611, all pertain to changes that were necessary because of House Bill 318 that was passed in the last General Assembly, and a lot of that pertains to discipline with respect to our students in grades pre-K through 3, and brings us current with the law. I think you've all seen that policies that were going to be presented will not be, and those are numbers 6320 and 6325, dealing with purchasing and procurement, both state and federal funds. And there's a bit more work just to make sure those are consistent and that everybody is on the same page, and they will be brought back soon. Policy 8141 is amended almost entirely to reflect some language that some people who work for us have more than one license. And when we report about their misconduct, we have to report to each of the agencies that has licensed them. Finally, or not finally, but 9141, business advisory councils, we've already taken action to reflect that the ESC of Central Ohio will be able to help us meet the requirements of having a business advisory council. This will formalize that as well as to reflect the work that has already been done by the Superintendent of Public Instruction and the Governor's Executive Workforce Board in developing standards for operation. And that's now brought current in the policy. And finally, there's a amendment with respect to weapons. No change whatsoever in anything that our policies already do, but this simply places this section of policy in an additional place. It's identical to those governing certificated and classified staff, and will now be elsewhere in the policy manual. And those are all of the amendments that the Policy Review Committee is recommending that we adopt.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. So this constitutes first reading of those items that Mr. Brown just went through, and so they will be back before us at the next meeting?
Yes, these policies will be, provided nothing unexpected arises about them between now and then.
Very good.
I do have one other note for the board, and I guess it's timely, but that is that the Policy Review Committee we met yesterday, but at the meeting before that, we did start work on a policy that dealt with travel. And we had a very good discussion, and we had another very good discussion yesterday. We made some progress on some ideas and how we might approach the topic, and Jennifer Adair is going to be leading a subcommittee with Emily White and Kelsey Ellingson. And they will take a look at what the discussion was about and see if they can shape something up for the Policy Review Committee to take a look at our next meeting toward the end of September. There will not be something presented to this board at the September meeting. I can assure you of that. We want to make sure that we do it right, and there's no urgency to that, but we will get it done, and we've got some very good ideas, and I anticipate, because our last meeting of the year for policy review, I think, is in November, I think we may have something at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And if colleagues, if you have any questions on any of those policies that are part of that first reading, please feel free to reach out to Mr. Brown or Dr. Rausch, who staffs the PRC. Question on that? Yes, Board Member Gibbs.
I have a question on Thank you, President Baker. In the discussion of policy 5610 around the removal, suspension, expulsion, and permanent exclusion of students, I want to make sure we're clear that according, I think you say House Bill 318, it calls for the reduction and ultimately, aspirationally, the elimination of suspensions and expulsions for students in grades pre-K through 3. It's been a long advocacy, a long time goal for many public education advocates as well as school to prison pipeline advocates that we begin to reduce the number because they disproportionately represent students of color and particularly African American males, since we had such a great presentation from African American Male Initiative earlier today. But I don't want people to think that this is a poof, be gone, right? So just because we write it, we see that there is a step down elimination from 2019 to 2020 school year and a reduction of 25% to 50% to it becoming really on a very prescribed basis. My question, because we've done this in Innovation and Reform Committee, we've taken this up for a number of years, but where would this work live in the district? Who's going to monitor and measure our discipline and our suspension and our expulsion rates to make sure that we're in it line or we're going to hit the targets for the 25 to 50 and that there's a fidelity to the work and that we're not just because it reaches the goal to say, hey, we're not going to suspend them, but we also need a corresponding plan to mitigate the behavior, right? Restorative practice, restorative justice, whatever that is, but it can't be this absence of, or people perceive there's this absence of consequences, and then come fourth grade, our rates go up to like 85% because now we can suspend you. So I'm not going to ask for an answer now, but I will be looking for it after the policy. What's the implementation and what's that plan of how we are going to look at this, how we're going to follow this work, and how this policy then becomes to live in the lives of our students, not just pre-K 3, but definitely 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, so that parents understand what this means and our students begin to understand, because there will need to be an education about it, because some parents aren't going to understand why didn't that kid get suspended. You know, let's talk about the practical implications. Last year, you would have got suspended, but under this plan, how are we going to reduce it to 25%? And I know it lays it out, but as you get ready to do this work, it's on page 9 of this policy, but as we begin to reduce the work, I want to make sure we're taking the appropriate, we can understand the measurement or the plan so we can explain it to parents when we're caught in a grocery store or when you hit my little niece and my sister calls me and say, I don't understand what happens, that we have an appropriate engagement plan, communication plan, and we can, and what that training, and you don't have to tell us, but how are we training those first year teachers? How does this impact classroom management? How are our principals then being trained on not just the administrative dispensation, how you dispense discipline, but how are they being taught to do it more equitably and more fairly? Black and Latino students are disproportionately disciplined across the country. So there is some systemic issue we still have to address, not just in Columbus, Detroit, Albuquerque, I mean, everywhere. So I will just be looking forward to that continued conversation of how we'll be able to successfully aspire to this policy.
Okay, and so, thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Thank
So
you.
you're not looking for an answer tonight?
No, not today. I just
but-
want to express my concern about that.
So I might ask for the superintendent to prepare a response and just share it with the whole
Yeah,
board.
not now.
And Mr. Brown, did you want to comment?
Just briefly, at least from my perspective with respect to Ms. Gibbs' comments, I think that the work of the General Assembly to help move this along was a good thing as a matter of law and policy. Our action in adopting this policy is also a very good step and says what the will of this body is, and that we think this is important. And now I'm excited that our superintendent and her new administrative team will be able to address the administrative matters and the operational matters that come to bringing our policy to fruition and make it live. And I'm especially excited that not only do we have good people, you have good people on your team to look at the numbers, but a new chief equity officer who undoubtedly is going to have a role in interpreting and making sure that we do what this board wants done.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Seeing no other comments on that, let's move on then. So I think we are to that item that we added to our agenda. And so would someone like to move that item that we added earlier? Because it's on the agenda as an item. Does someone
Yes,
need to make a motion to
that's-
that effect?
That would be in order on the agenda, yes.
Mr. Brown, would you like to make a motion? Well, you've already made the motion, but.
I move that we, yes, please. That will help ensure that we are, in fact, all on the same page. And that's the number one goal that we have.
Thank
Oh,
you, Mr.
yes.
Treasurer.
Move that we resolve to prohibit the Board of Education board members to travel out of state for the remainder of the calendar year. Oh, there is a word, I'm sorry, to clarify Resolution 3.1 that may have been adopted at the July 12th meeting. That, and I think we can keep it just this simple. By way of background, I believe that we're all on board with having approved the wonderful and very effective training at the Harvard Business School, and we're not revisiting that. But the motion that I made back then on July 12th and that we're going to take up now is the rest of what I had to say, which is we do that Harvard business trip on the condition that there be no further travel by board members out of state for the balance of the year, allowing us to complete the work on the travel policy that is now underway.
Very good. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Okay. Mr. Treasurer? Is everybody clear on the motion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none? Mr. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Vice President Cole?
No.
Ms. Gibbs?
No.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
No.
Ms. Adair?
No.
President Baker?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes?
That motion failed?
Thank you very much, colleagues. Let's move on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion that we adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Colleagues, any questions or comments on any piece of legislation contained within the consent agenda this evening? Mr. Brown.
That we, in accordance with the process as stated in the agenda, that we pull out and vote separately on the July 12th minutes. The other set of minutes can remain in the consent agenda,
Okay.
but just the July 12th minutes.
So Mr. Brown is requesting that we pull out that particular item so that it can be voted on separately. Any objection? I'm going to pull out the item that relates to the July 12th minutes so we can vote on that separately.
What is that? What number? Give me the number. Item what, point what?
It would be on 10.1. There are two sets of minutes. It's in 10.1, the June 28th regular meeting and the July 12th meeting, which was a special meeting. As I understand the request, July 12th would be pulled out, and subsequent to the vote on the consent agenda, then a motion would be in order relative to the approval of the July 12th special meeting.
Treasurer Booker, is it still 10.1?
Well, actually, it'll be 11.1 now.
Just so we
once
clear
get
my
around
point
to
on
it.
the
Yeah.
correcting.
I was it should be 10.1 in your agendas that you see them, but we'll renumber them after this.
All right, so hearing no objection, that item is hereby pulled out of the consent agenda. We will vote on it subsequent to adoption of the consent agenda. Any other comments, colleagues? Yes, ma'am, Ms.
Just
Gibbs.
very quickly, our agenda contains a number of donations from members of our community. Columbus Rotary, Scott's Miracle Grow, the Terry and Michele Kelly Fund. There's a card donation to Fort Hayes and a gift from PNC Bank. We continue to thank our community partners and individual families who find it beneficial to provide opportunities and resources so our students can attend and have access to the best resources possible. Thank you all for your donations.
Absolutely, and thank you for highlighting those, Board Member Gibbs. There's also a donation from Columbus Rotary. I don't think you mentioned them, but okay, all great partners. So thank you to all of you who continue to support the district. We obviously couldn't be successful without all of our community partners. All right, hearing nothing else, is there?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
The consent agenda has been moved and seconded.
Yeah.
It stands before the board for a vote.
Mr. Treasurer?
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank
The
you,
consent agenda
colleagues.
carried without the 7-12 minutes included.
All right, now is there a motion then that we,
Motion to approve the minutes from July 12th.
okay, and there's a second. Discussion, colleagues? Board Member Gibbs?
For the record, I was not at the July 12th meeting. I was in the middle of a hurricane in New Orleans. So my discussion and my abstention is because I was not there. And I was not a part of that special meeting and that conversation. So as we discuss all of that, it is the board members that were present. I was
And
being
thank
blown
you.
away with Toto.
We are very glad that you made it back in one piece, Ms. Gibbs.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, hearing no further discussion. Oh, I beg your pardon, Mr. Ragland.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
President Baker, I need to take issue with the section on the minutes that reads specifically Eric Brown moved, seconded by James Ragland, to approve the resolution approval to attend professional development. That was not the motion that I seconded. There was another motion that was made that is not reflected in the minutes at all. I would like that motion added to the minutes from July 12th. And I would also like it added that that was the motion that I seconded at the July 12th meeting for the clarification of the approval of these minutes.
So thank you, Mr. Ragland. So you are asking that the minutes from July 12th be amended as you stated. So you're offering an amendment to those minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions on the amendment? Yes, Ms. Gibbs.
So while I was not there, I'm to understand that legal counsel weighed in on these minutes. What did our legal counsel say and what did you find?
Director, yes, ma'am. Director Lillis, would you like to comment?
Sure. President Baker, Ms. Gibbs, members of the board. I believe that you may be referencing conversation that Treasurer Bahoric had. I am aware that he consulted with outside counsel. I was on vacation during that time, so I was also not present at the meeting.
Director Lillis, thank you.
And I'm not sure that there is a legal question here. There may be something pertaining to Robert's rules, but nothing as a matter of
Mr.
law.
Brown, Board Member Gibbs has posed a question to which I mean to get an answer. Mr. Treasurer, would you care to respond?
I was at the meeting. Subsequent to that meeting, some questions arose about the resolution and what exactly was before the board and what the board actually voted on. I sought essentially a second opinion on what I had recorded as the minutes, and that's when I went to legal counsel, assuming that they might have parliamentary expertise. I shared with them the board agenda. I shared with them the video tape videotape, that's not the current word. I guess it's just a video recording of the meeting and ask them to give me their opinion as to what was before the board at that point in time. They concurred with my understanding of what the board voted on, and that's what is recorded in your minutes.
Thank you. All right, so we have an amendment before us. So we're going to vote on whether or not to amend the minutes of July 12th as requested by Board Member Ragland. Mr. Brown, do you have another question? I'm sorry.
I just want to speak to it briefly.
Yes, sir.
I think that it's crystal clear, would be agreed to by everybody, that I did offer a motion that approved Harvard, and that motion also was to prohibit any further board member travel out of state, as we've discussed.
So you're suggesting...
I think that the minutes need to reflect that I made that motion and that Mr. Ragland seconded that motion. And that is certainly part of what needs to be included. It is at least our contention, and I don't know for other board members, that that's what we acted on, that's what we voted on, and there are others who I know have a different view of that. But I believe that all of that should be reflected in the minutes.
And that's why Board Member Ragland offered an amendment, yes, and you
Correct.
seconded it.
Yes.
So we're now going to vote, oh, I beg your pardon, Mr. Treasurer.
All need to be clear here. I am not clear because I gave up my pad to Board Member Brown. That's okay, no, I got another one. But could you do a synopsis or a repeat of exactly what your amendment says?
Certainly. The current
Yes, Mr.
current
Ragland.
minutes for the July 12th meeting do not reflect the initial motion that was made by Board Member Brown to accept the Harvard professional development with the understanding that there would be no further
With that caveat.
board travel. The minutes do not reflect that motion and my second of that motion at all. The minutes erroneously say Eric Brown moved, seconded by James Ragland, to approve the resolution, approval to attend professional development. Now, while approval to attend professional development at the Harvard Business School was a part of Mr. Brown's motion, the additional caveat that there would be no further board travel is not indicated anywhere in the minutes. And I am requesting that the initial motion made by Mr. Brown that was absent anything on the agenda be included in these minutes.
Okay, so let me ask this question. I think I hear you saying that you want that resolution, because there was only one resolution at that board meeting relative to this that Mr. Brown made. He made a resolution. There wasn't a second resolution by Mr. Brown that I know of.
That's correct.
So are you asking that that resolution be changed to read at the end, contingent upon no board travel out of state for the remainder of the calendar year?
That was the resolution that I seconded, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Treasurer, are you clear on the amendment that's before us?
Yes, because at first blush, it sounded to me like you were asking me to add a resolution to that meeting that would include that, and that there's only one resolution, and I think the question was whether or not it had that caveat about board travel.
Well, no, what I'm asking for is clarity on what I seconded, based off the minutes that have been presented here, the minutes that have been presented today, and I've read them, erroneously say that I seconded a motion that said only for approval to attend professional development. I did not I did not second just that. I seconded what was stated initially.
So with, Mr. Treasurer, so with the addition that he stipulated,
Okay.
that's the amendment, and it's been duly seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. Treasurer, would you mind calling the roll on the amendment?
Should I vote on this, or should I just abstain all the way through?
You may abstain if you choose. Yes. Board Member Adair?
So I want to make sure that we are always governing with the utmost integrity and transparency. And I do agree that those words were stated by Board Member Brown and seconded by Mr. Ragland in that meeting. However, I don't believe that we used that we followed Robert's rules correctly, and then based on based on outside counsel's reading, it was in fact the motion as written was what was voted on. Do I have that understanding correct?
Without calling up the video, as I recall the video and my experience at that meeting, Board Member Brown fashioned a resolution.
Mr. Treasurer, are you answering her question?
Yes,
Because
because one of the, just clarifying, she said what Board Member Brown moved and what Mr. Ragland seconded. In between those two, between the motion and the second, as we, and many boards often do, we were fashioning that resolution. And what the video showed was a conversation between Board Member Brown and President Baker about what is that resolution. And it was that conversation that I listened to in determining what was clear to me. You know, it's just, all I can do is tell you what my clarity was. Was clear to me was pointing to that resolution that was in the agenda. That then was seconded after Mr. Brown appeared to agree to the conversation and the clarity that President Baker was trying to provide. And that was then what was seconded. Any lack of clarity or misconception by the balance of the board, with all due respect, was not my concern at that point, nor my duty to attempt to clarify, but it was clear to me, and which is why I recorded the minutes the way I did. And my second opinion of someone outside, in their opinion, confirmed my reading of that. So just that's how we got where we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. All right, let's call the roll on the amendment. We're voting on the amendment.
Okay, on the amendment, Ms. Reyes?
No.
Ms. Adair?
No.
President Baker?
No.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
No.
Ms. Gibbs?
Abstain.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
The motion on the amendment failed.
Thank you. We're back to the main motion. Any further discussion? Would you mind restating the main motion?
The main motion before the board at this time is to approve the minutes of the special meeting held on July 12th, as submitted.
All right, please call the roll.
Ms. Adair? Yes. President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Vice President Cole? Yes. Ms. Gibbs? Mr. Ragland?
No.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Colleagues, thank you very much. Let's move on to announcements. And so I don't forget, I want to call on Director Smido to talk about city's appropriation as it relates to funding pre-K during the upcoming school year. Yes, sir. Yes,
I want to make sure.
That's right. Well, who knows?
I know. Thank you, President Baker, members of the board. We're really excited to start the 2019-2020 school year. This marks the 6th year of the mayor's Early Learning Expansion Program. Our goal this year is to serve 1,000 Columbus children, just like we did last year. We've been appropriated by the mayor and by city council a little over $4.7 million. Of that, we plan to serve, again, 559 students in Columbus City Schools, taught by Columbus City Schools teachers in Columbus City Schools classrooms. That equals about $2.4 million. We really thank your team for all the work that they've done since we've been partnering with you over the last couple of years. It is by far our most efficient way that we can spend our money. In the community, then we'll also partner with another 24 providers at about 45 different locations across the city, which also equals about $2.5 million for this year. So we're always looking to see how we can make the partnership better, both with Columbus City Schools and with our community-based providers as well, and how we can use our funding more efficient. So we hope to serve another 1,000 students this year, and since we've started, we've served about 4,500 Columbus children. And if you really look at the data and believe the data on the importance of pre-K education for our lowest income children, I think we've really changed lives. Therefore, 4,500 kids in this district. So we're very thankful that we've been able to do that. And thank you very much for your partnership.
Absolutely. Thank you, Interim Director Smito.
Thank you.
Colleagues, questions? Yes, Mr. Brown.
No,
Beg pardon. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Smito? Just, again, on behalf of the board, thank you so much for the city's partnership. Take that back to the mayor and to city council on our behalf. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
Thank you, President Baker.
All right. Colleagues, questions, announcements, points of pride? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Two items. First, it's already been mentioned by several, including myself, but I think that the experience that we all shared last week at the Harvard Business School was spectacular. It was not only the 7 of us, but Dr. Dixon, along with, I think, nearly 100 school board members and superintendents from large urban school districts across the country, taught by the Harvard Business School faculty primarily, with a little bit of help from the Kennedy School and the Education School. And it was intense, it was rigorous. They did not leave us any free time. It was all work and really good work. And I think that what we learned there and what we practiced there will serve us well going forward. The second item I wanted to mention is very exciting. This week, as I think many of you know, Virgin Hyperloop 1 is in town. And they will be presenting on Wednesday, tomorrow, lunchtime at the Columbus Metropolitan Club. But I had the opportunity to join Marilyn at a reception last evening, meet and talk with their CEO, Jay Walder, along with several of his staff people. Diana Zhu, their Director of Policy and Project Strategy, as well as a young man named Ryan Kelly, who's Head of Marketing and Communications. And one of the things that we spoke about was how we can partner with them on behalf of our students. They already do some work in other parts of the country. They have a high level of interest in working with us, in providing opportunities of all kinds. And we didn't start to go down the path of, what are those opportunities, but they're everything that anybody could imagine, because the Hyperloop itself is highly creative and beyond the imagination of many people. They did express to me specifically that they look forward to working with us, perhaps in partnership not only with with us, but with Fred Bertley and COSI. I know that they were here in part because of the Columbus Partnership and because of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission and William Murdoch there, and there is a lot of excitement. They tell me that when they traveled up and down the streets with showing off the vehicle, that there were lots of people that approached them and asked questions, had things to say. They were very impressed by a couple of things. One, the level of obvious partnership between the public and private sector, something that's been called the Columbus Way. But also the young people that approach them are very excited and want to know not only how it works, but how they can be involved. And this is, unsolicited coming from the CEO of this project. And I foresee just so many possibilities. So I will be passing along the names of the individuals that I had conversations with. I will be talking with those people again tomorrow at lunchtime. I don't know if anybody else might be present at that Metropolitan Club luncheon, but I want to further that conversation and see where this can take us. It's just very exciting opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Colleagues, other comments, points of pride? Board Member Reyes?
I just wanted to kind of mention, in the Latino community, we are celebrating the Latino Festival this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I do believe that we are engaged in that opportunity, similar to the African American Male Walk will have presence. Most importantly, what I always want to say when we have presence out there, we're always looking for great talent. We are always looking for great people to join our team, especially bus drivers, teachers, custodians, et cetera, et cetera. This is an opportunity for you. We're out in the community for you to come and talk to us about your interest with us. I always want good people to be part of our team. So at both events, African American Male Walk and at the Latino Festival, please come, participate with us, take a book, do a little bit more reading. There's still 2 more weeks left before we start school. But also exciting as part of the kickoff to the Latino Festival and as we prepare for Hispanic Heritage Month, just around the corner, there is a art exhibit, Pasos de Arte, at the Columbus Cultural Arts Center. This is Latino artists from around the city, not only people who are painters, but also dress designers in the city who have gone to New York and had their pieces done. It's interactive. On Friday, August 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. Please stop by. The exhibit will be in existence until September 14th. We've previously had Columbus City School students be a part of this. We hope to have this every year with the Columbus Cultural Arts Center and engage Columbus City School. As you can see, our artwork on the walls, we want to continue to make sure that there's opportunities for a diversity of art pieces and that we showcase a lot of our folks. The reason I'm engaged is on my other hat, we do have, I serve as a director of the Our Lady of Guadalupe Center. We have a retired, a 72-year-old lady from Cuba who creates art pieces using the aluminum foils of the Hershey's Kisses and Rolos and stuff like that. She creates a lot of wonderful artwork. I encourage you to come out and just see a different type of art that you may have not experienced anywhere else in the city. So I have flyers if people want, but it's Pasos de Arte with Kappa and the Columbus Cultural Arts Center, the Museum of Art, and other folks. So
thank you. Board Member Adair.
Thank you, President Baker. I have a couple of announcements. One, I don't know if you guys know, but today is National Night Out. So across Columbus, our communities are celebrating together to end nonviolence, or to create nonviolent communities. So I know it's over now, but I hope everyone had a really great time, and I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that was happening. Also, some shout outs. I know we have the South Bulldog Bash this weekend as well, and I'm sure other schools are doing amazing things to welcome their students back and their teachers back. I will be attending the production, the opening night production of Bring It On, where we have some of our Eastmore Academy students, I knew that was coming, in partnership with the Columbus Children's Theater and other students from across different districts that will be performing opening night at Eastmore Academy. So it's in our house. So we need lots of support for our students. So I'm excited to attend that with my daughter, who is going to love it. I also wanted to give a shout out to all of our student artists who had work that was exhibited at the Ohio State Fair. We had several students that won awards and had recognition, so just amazing job at that. And lastly, I want to put my box top coordinator hat on and tell everybody that now anybody can be a box top clipper because it's all going digital. So all you have to do is download the app, find any of your favorite Columbus City schools and scan your receipts, and you can help. It doesn't matter if you have a student in the building, you can help your local school by being a box top clipper. Super easy. Find any CCS school. I know that they would be happy for that. So thank you. Those are my announcements.
Thank you, Board Member Adair. Mr. Ragland, have you any announcements? All right, Mr. Vice President, have you anything to share? Ms. Gibbs, I know you like to go last.
I do. I have several.
Yes, ma'am.
With the aid of my handy dandy notebook. Today marks a very sad day. Let me start with noting that we lost an incredible literature legend today in that of Miss Toni Morrison, who is a native of Lorain, Ohio. She had a tremendous impact on many educators, many writers, many people all across the globe. Born Chloe Ardelia Wofford, she changed her name to Toni while a student at Howard University, where she earned her bachelor's degree. She went on to graduate with a master's from Cornell University and started her early years as an editor and a writer, editing other people's work. And in her editing and in that field, she decided she wanted to edit other people's work, and that her role in the civil rights movement was to make sure she captured the writing, the thoughts of the leaders at that time. And she secretly then would wake up very early in the morning and stay up late at night to write her own works. She went on to earn the Nobel Prize in Literature and the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And she has many quotes. If you've been on Facebook today, she talks about make a difference about something other than yourself. And I think the work we do in the Columbus Board of Education, all of our educators, parents, and our community advocates, we all strive to make a difference about something other than ourselves, whether it's our children, our systems, our infrastructure, our money, our finances, our legal process, whatever it is our small role is. She is an inspirational person who will be sorely missed and one of Ohio's greatest. So being here in the state of Ohio and knowing that she came from these quite humble beginnings, we're very honored and privileged to honor the life of Toni Morrison, and didn't want this day to go by without doing so in her home state. So definitely appreciate that. My second announcement is, you can't quite see it, but for our students who are interested in attending Florida A&M University, although I'm a Clark Atlanta grad, I believe in HBCUs, to your point about Tom Joyner, and over $60 million he's used to send students to college. On Friday, August 16th from 6 to 8, the local Florida A&M University advocacy group, which is called Pace Setters, and their alumni association will hold an event at the Doubletree Hilton Hotel. It says Columbus Worthington, which is interesting, but it is in Columbus in the Oak Room. So we'll make that flyer available, I think, on Peach Jar. And so if there's any students who are trying to get a jump, and at summer, and at summer graduation, we'll get ahead of that. Okay. My last piece is just a few reflections I have about Harvard Business School. Otherwise, I'm going to forget in the next 2 days. But these are just some thoughts I had. And again, I agree with Board Member Brown about this opportunity. It was a partnership held at the Harvard Business School Executive Education, and it was brought to us from our partner at the Council of Great City Schools. The Council of Great City Schools is comprised of the largest school districts in the country, or the largest district in your particular state. We are a member of the council in good standing, and they provide numerous opportunities for us to learn, grow, and work together with our colleagues across the country. We were able to study with a lot of amazing districts: Albuquerque, Anchorage, Boston, Broward County, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Cincinnati, interesting, Clark County, Columbus, Dallas, Fort Worth, Pittsburgh, Portland, Rochester, San Diego, St. Louis, and Philadelphia. They call themselves the School District of Philadelphia. That's why they're out of order, because I didn't add the whole S thing. Something totally different. But we were the inaugural class. We were the first districts chosen, and there was a waiting list of almost as many people on this screen that wanted to come and weren't able. They were ready to come the night before to take advantage of this opportunity. So we are glad to be in that first number. Just a few things on what I discovered about while I was there. This is a picture of our classroom, and we had assigned seats. I haven't sat in an assigned seat in like 20 years, y'all, right? And then the second day, they decided to change it around so you didn't get too buddy-buddy with the person you were with. But we filled up every single seat in this lecture hall, in the Child Center. So it was in fact your seat, and you were supposed to be there. So they thought very intentionally about which districts, what composition, and who they wanted to be in this room. What I discovered, when I discovered an introduction to different theories of coherent school board governance. They talk about the things that impact governance in school boards: policies, people, and processes, culture, resources, structure, stakeholders, systems, environment. And we were introduced to the idea of question zero in theory of change. And the goal was to have better focused outcomes, whether it was through the administrative lens or governance lens or decision making. That was what I took away in terms of the school board governance. Harvard offers tremendous opportunities for people to learn in the summer, but this was the very first one designed for school board members and school districts to learn alongside with your superintendent. So I found that to be incredibly beneficial to be there. I found that Harvard has amazing faculty. Each one of these presenters brought something totally different. I mean, from the case studies, which are proprietary, but from the way you look at things, the way you make decisions as a team. We didn't get to work together as a board in that way during the case studies, but hearing from other people was tremendously amazing. On my far right is Mr. John J.H. Kim from the business school, and he was our main moderator, and he was incredible. I mean, he really stretched us in thinking. I was in Living Group 25, whoop, whoop. I also learned there is something to learn from everyone. My living group consisted of Miami, Pittsburgh, Anchorage, Alaska, Dallas, Fresno, Charlotte, Columbus, and Las Vegas, which is Clark County. And we were tasked with putting together ideas about how you bring this work home, how do you implement it, what are your next steps, and from all of our perspectives, how does all of that come to life? So I learned that there is something to learn from everyone. And I also learned we're not perfect, but we are good. It takes going away sometimes to hear about what other boards are doing, what other people are facing with, and you come home and say, oh, we ain't that bad. Yeah, even with all this, oh, we ain't that bad. Like from what you hear, and then people hear about what we do, and they go, oh, but it's being able to put it all in perspective, to learn with this entire team, to hear how we do it better, to see how we learn together. It was just a tremendous opportunity to see all of us together. And so they are planning, and they are in the works of presenting a ABC 2.0 at the Council of Great City Schools Conference in Louisville in the fall. And so if they get a chance to put together that workshop, the participants in this conference will have an opportunity to attend. I need to take my picture off. Oh, no. But we'll have a chance to continue that work and that conversation, and I hope they're able to pull it forward. So to my colleagues, thank you for, I wasn't here, but thank you for moving that forward. Thank you for saying that this opportunity is a priority and learning together is a priority, and that we were in the room and we will help shape the learning of board members and districts for years to come, because we are now the benchmark. And I can tell you, each one of our colleagues contributed. Their words and their thoughts were well sought after. People were very attentive when we spoke. I'm not going to say anything about the way people bid in auctions or anything, but as an exercise, we are a winning team and we want to win and we're competitive. And so I feel very good about that. And my last piece I want to say is I don't know if we said it in open session, but when people say, how are you doing? And I said, I'm doing well. You know, we have a new superintendent and we don't have an F on the report card. And so to that team, to my team, you're right, Dr. Klein, that was here to help do that heavy lift. Dr. Stanford, Ms. Gillison, Dr. Klein, the whole team that helped move us so that when we open up this year, that is not on our back. And our superintendent is able to move and start working because we're not satisfied with the D. So she's not starting at the bottom and we're not starting at the bottom. So I do want to make sure I publicly thank everybody, this entire district, for that heavy lift that you did to better position us to start 2019-2020. Because reading some of them case studies, we could be starting a whole lot worse. I'm just telling y'all. And that is not the case. And we don't have that breathing down our back. And you're able to lead and flow and move with this new team in the direction we need to go. And I'm very excited that those 2 checklists are done. President Baker, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Board Member Gibbs. Insightful as always. The last thing I want to say on the trip to Boston is that we are going to, I've asked staff to try to set a date for a debrief session for us. A number of you have mentioned that that would be a good next step, so we will work towards that. And thank you. Yes, Board Member Adair.
We had this amazing experience at Harvard, but I do want to say we did have a team that went out a few weeks before, made up of principals and administrators who also participated in a Harvard experience. And so I'm really excited that they got that experience, and I'm hoping that just as we're going to debrief and share, they are going to debrief and share among their colleagues so that we can all benefit together.
Last thing I want to say is happy birthday to Ari Tolles. So Ari Tolles, happy birthday. And I don't want to jump the gun, but Thursday is the birthday of Board Member Ramona Reyes. Yeah. I won't tell you how old.
I'll tell you how. Yeah.
She's proud of it. Anything, Ari Tolles is 28, he told me not to say that. Colleagues, anything else for the good of the order before I ask the Vice President to offer a motion? Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. It is recommended that the board recess into executive session per section 121.22G4 of the Ohio Revised Code to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. The board will now recess into executive session. We will adjourn from those chambers without returning to these. I thank you. Have a good evening.